Excuse me. I hope everyone's doing well. So this Surfside building collapse, it has confused me for a couple weeks now. I wanted to, before I post anything on it, I wanted to try and get as much information on it as I can. And to be frank with everybody, at first I was very suspicious. Um, buildings just don't collapse like that, especially in the United States. And people were comparing it to the World Trade Center, and I can understand that because of how fast it collapsed. But they're two different entirely buildings. One was a steel structure. This Surfside was a concrete rebar. And I've been trying to piece together what happened. And again, I was very suspicious, but then, and my suspicion grew a little bit. How fast that they were able to demo the remaining part of that structure. I mean, typically that would be, months planning, going in there, drilling, running wire, detonation caps, whatever. Looks like, I mean, they got it done in almost a day. And that really, got my antennas up. But, from the very beginning, I keep looking at it, and there's no strategic or tactical reason for that to, be useful to bring that building down. Nobody's claiming um, um, that they were the ones that brought it down. It doesn't change any government policy. Well, it's going to change some government policies, but at the local level, maybe at the federal building code level, but nothing worthwhile. Nothing like 9/11 or anything like that. So I've been watching a lot of engineering on this, and I've just seen an animation that somebody did up that explains how the building collapsed and how it collapsed so fast. And it kind of put everything together for me. I'm going to put a link to it in the comments. But and it confirms a lot of things. Okay, these are the things that we know. That there was a constant pool of water on the pool deck above the parking garage. And a lot of times that water got into the parking garage and they were pumping water out, pretty much nonstop. And the 2018 engineering report, although they said there was structural damage, didn't rise to the level of having fear of collapse or anything like that. But the one thing that they did mention as how the building was designed with the pool deck, which is the second story, so to speak. First story, but you got the basement underneath where the parking garage is. And they built that flat so water couldn't drain off. And one of the recommendations that they had that was going to be very expensive was that they put a slope onto that deck and to allow the water to drain off. And there's photos of pools of water on there, with no rain, nothing, nice and sunny, but there's still wet spots all over. And concrete has good crush strength, but it doesn't have any tensile strength. Them guys that break them concrete blocks overhead and stuff, because it's not very strong that way. And We know that there was a phone call. A lady called her husband, and she was on the balcony, and unfortunately, it looks like she's passed away. They haven't found her body yet, but I don't see how she lived through it. But whereas she called her husband, she was out on the deck, and she said the parking floor had just collapsed, and she called it a sinkhole. And we also have a video of a couple that was swimming in a pool across the street that heard a noise coming from the building, and they videotaped it, and you could see a pipe, probably a fire sprinkler or something like that, just gushing out water. And it looked like some of the parking garage had, the roof of it had fallen down. It's not a very good video, and it's hard to tell everything, but forensic engineers will be able to take that and enhance it and help them get a better idea. But basically what it looks like happened was the pool deck or the roof of the parking garage. You got these pillars all going up, and there was three main pillars at this parking garage, parking spot 78. And the strange thing is these pillars are a lot smaller than the ones that were on the west side, where that portion of the building, the roof still slid down through there because you can see the white painted on it where the concrete had basically slid down. It's sort of like what do I want to say here? It's like, you know, just punched through it, just like that. Here's the floor, and the floor basically seemed, or the roof, either way you want to look at it, seemed to give way, and all the pillars just punched right through it, and the pillars were left standing. And the pillars under the west building that didn't collapse because it had a shear wall, an elevator shear wall. So it just sheared right off there. So it didn't damage that part of the building enough for it to collapse. And they had to bring that down later, of course, to continue the rescue operation, or maybe now the recovery operation, whichever way you want to look at it. And that pool deck or the roof of the parking garage just collapsed down on there. And when it did that, it collapsed down on the cars below it. And you can see that, the waviness of the thing. And it pulled the first set of pillars underneath that middle section that went first. It pulled them out. And then therefore the building, the middle of the building, you know, if you look at it, the building is basically shaped like a U, for lack of a better word, but it's shaped like that. And so the middle part with two wings right here, it basically pulled that part out. So there was no support to keep that middle part of the building up. So it collapsed, and then the back side of that U collapsed upon that. And the stairwell that was on the east side, I believe it is, wing of that, it briefly held that section of the building up, but it wasn't strong enough to hold it, and it eventually gave way and pancaked. And, you know, it's the only thing I've heard yet that made sense. And I've tried to eliminate as much as I can that there was not some nefarious action going on there. But we don't hear We do have witnesses. We have the people that were across the street. They heard something, but it wasn't explosions. Uh, People that were in the part of the building that was left standing that got out or left, they all described it as was like thunder. They thought they heard thunder, and I believe that's probably that building collapsing. And none of them said that they heard explosions. So I think we can rule out any nefarious action. I think what it's going to come down to, and I'm no engineer, and I don't claim to be. I'm definitely no architect, and I don't claim to be that. I do understand a little bit about concrete, but I think it's going to come down to it's a design flaw in the building because that pool deck was designed where water couldn't drain off of it. And it was probably hidden in there, and that rebar will rust and basically lose its strength. And there's a lot of weight on that. I mean, that's poured concrete, and it's a ton of weight on there. And that's the only explanation as of right now that makes sense to me. And I think that's where we're at right now until we get further proof. But now that qualified engineers and architects have been able to at least look at the photos and put together all the different bits of information, are starting to concentrate on that pool deck. And then we have a photo of some contractor went in there to take pictures to fix the pool mechanical room that's underneath, and it was part of the collapse. The pool stayed just fine because it's a concrete bathtub, so it didn't go anywhere. So the collapse of the deck generally kind of followed the pool all the way around like that. And he took some pictures, and there was quite a bit of cracking and spalling in that area, and it concerned him. And but I kept saying to myself, well, it concerned him, but it didn't concern any engineers. We got the 2018 report that said, there's problems with the building, which is typical with any 40-year-old building in that part of Florida, in Miami, because the settling and everything else, and gets to hurricanes. We've also had a lot of earthquakes in that area recently, not large ones. So, I was wondering, well, maybe could an earthquake, we didn't have any earthquakes recorded that day, but could an earthquake result in shifting the bedrock or, affecting the foundation of the building? Could that affected it? But it doesn't look like that was it either. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. I think we can rule out that we can rule out quite a few different things, being that I don't think there was a sinkhole. I don't think that somebody brought the building down. And it's strange to think this way, but I just think the whole thing came down to possibly, because there was no signs really in the rest of the building until it happened. One lady who got out just in time was in her kitchen and seen her kitchen start cracking like that. And and she hurried up and got out. Got out just in the nick of time. So it was very, very unusual, very strange. Got my antennas up. How something like this could happen, especially in America. But it really just is kind of coming together now as I've done my research. So my prayers go out to everybody that's living in that building. One poor soul just closed an apartment there on June 16th. What bad luck for him or her. So thank you all. I appreciate you listening. You all have a good day. Bye.